Hey everybody, it's Bishop Tap again. I wanted to take today and take a moment on self-reliance and kind of do a part 2 to the budget video that I did last time. And I want to just talk about some principles with budgeting that hopefully will help as you have picked your tool and are figuring out how to budget. And so let's just talk through those. The first is live within your means. I've said this before. And not live right up to the edge, because that's what I did for years, but you got to live well within your means. A lot of people, there are a lot of reasons why not to budget. Sometimes you're living so up to your means or just far beyond your means, you know it's a mess, you don't even want to look at it. But that's not okay either. We have to make sure we're always budgeting. In fact, that goes into the next principle I want to talk about. When should you budget? The answer, always. You always need to have a budget. Not just when times are bad, but also when times are good. It's kind of like prayer to me. We tend to run to God in prayer when we need help. That's most of our natural inclinations because we love God and we have faith in Him. That's the easiest time to pray. Sometimes the hardest time to pray is when things are going good. And that's just like a budget. Just like prayer, we gotta pray every day to develop a relationship with God. The best relationship building times with God are when things are going good. That's when you have time to breathe and stop and really have a conversation with God. Same thing goes with the budget. If you want to do well with your finances, you need to budget when it's hard and when it's easy, when you don't want to look at it, whether that's because life's going good or because life's going bad. We have to make sure that we're always budgeting. And so let's talk about what type of things go into your budget. So first of all, the first part of your budget is your income. How much is coming in this month? Again, I talked about you got to do that different every month because you'll have different income and different expenses every month. Last month we all got COVID-19 checks, right? Or stimulus checks. So you account that in as income and plan your budget accordingly. So the first expense on your item on your budget needs to be, and I bet you can't guess because I'm the bishop, it needs to be tithing. You've got to pay God first because you need God's blessings. And there's lots of reasons to do this, and I've shared it in past messages, but I'll share it again. The scripture in Malachi says, "Will a man rob God? Yet ye have robbed me. But ye say, wherein have we robbed thee? In thy tithes and offerings. Ye are cursed with a curse, for ye have robbed me." We got to remember that that if someone came to your house and robbed you, if someone stole my TV downstairs and then 2 days later knocked on my door asking for money and I knew who it was, I wouldn't give them money ever. And now I'm not like God. God is forgiving and He'll forgive us. But He's saying while we're in the act of robbing Him, we're cursed because we can't get that blessing. And He views not giving your 10% tithe as a cursing. And so it's not 9.99%, it's the full 10%. You give it to Him. And the next scripture says, the windows of heaven will be open to pour you out a blessing that you will not have room enough to receive it. You can't afford not to pay tithing because it opens the windows of heaven. It paves the path for God to bless you and help you out, both spiritually and temporally. So you start with tithing as your first line item. The second thing is fast offerings. Here's what I'll have to say about that. We, especially if you're just beginning on the path to self-reliance, you give what you can on fast offerings. It's 2 meals. So if that is 2 PB&J sandwiches and that's all you can afford, great. Or 2 meals at McDonald's, great. I told all of you this at tithing settlement. The commandment is to give a generous fast offering. So how much? Generous. Be generous. That's how much you give. And so make sure you always have your fast offering in there as well. As you get more money, make sure you're adding more into that fast offering. Or not as you get more, as you are more self-reliant, give more in fast offerings. I've heard it said, someone mentioned to someone close to me the other day, if you think you have God's blessings now, increase your fast offering by 10 times and watch the blessings roll in. I can't wait to get to the point I can do that to 10 times my fast offering. But I can't fit that in my budget right now. I need to sacrifice, and so, but once I get a little more steady, I want to put that principle to the test. First is paying God and fast offerings. The next thing you put in your budget is what we call the 4 walls. The 4 walls are what you can't live without. If you don't have these 4 things, you can't survive. You can't think straight. You can't take care of yourself. So let's get these 4 things in place. So the first thing is food. You always pay for food first. If you can't eat, you can't exist. The second is you pay for housing. If you're homeless, how can you take care of yourself? So food, housing, and modest housing. Okay, housing that fits your budget. And so if you find a place where you are poor because you pay too much in rent, move, change your lifestyle, right? The third thing then is utilities. You need to keep the lights on and keep the heater running. You've got to have those 3 things as a must. Now, utilities I will talk about. I don't consider Wi-Fi a utility. I went 2 years without Wi-Fi in college. You know, it's okay to not have the internet. I know that's shocking, but sometimes bundle it with your phone plan and use your unlimited minutes, or go to the library, or go sit in a cafe somewhere. You don't need Wi-Fi as part of your 4 walls. Other than that, it's your basic utilities, right? And then the fifth thing is, or the 4th wall is transportation. If you don't have a way to get to work, whether that's a bike or a bus pass or a car or a motorcycle and the gas to put in it, then you can't bring in income, so you have no money to budget with. So take care of those 4 walls first. Now, if you are having trouble with any of those 4 walls, if you're in a spot where you can't take care of that, talk to me immediately. Let's figure it out. We have ways to help you get those 4 walls established so that you can move on to the next thing. Now, obviously, if there's a more systematic problem with the income, we'll talk about that later. But as bishop, I want to help you make sure those four walls are taken care of so you can move on to being self-reliant. Okay, so those are the 4 walls. Then the next thing you pay is yourself. You have to make sure that you pay yourself first. I read a book. After all that, book. It's a great book called The Richest Man in Babylon. One of the principles in there is pay thyself first. Now, we pay God and then we take care of the 4 walls. But after that, before anyone else gets paid, you set aside some money for a rainy day. That's what pay yourself first is. And you want to maximize that as much as possible. Now, we'll talk about, I mentioned before, in Dave Ramsey's Baby Steps, we'll talk about how to take that money you're setting aside for yourself and strategically get out of debt, get emergency fund put in place, use that for investing, for paying off your house. All of those things we'll talk about later. That's what paying yourself first is for, okay? Now, everything else kind of follows after that. Any lifestyle, any luxury, anything else follows after that. So let's talk about then some other reasons people don't budget. Some people have variable incomes. Maybe you work on commission or you get tips, or whether it's full commission or part commission, or your job just changes. And so people just don't budget because they don't know how to do it. Well, there is a way to do it. You can Google it, just Google budgeting with a variable income. Um, the first thing you do is okay, you make a budget and you know on a good month I get this, on a bad month I get this, and maybe it's zero. And so you need to find a happy medium so that when you're on a good month you don't spend everything, but you're saving enough to handle the months when you're down at zero. And so if you will take the time to first tithing, second fast offerings, then your four walls, and then pay yourself. Do those 7 things first in your budget, and then you'll find enough even with a variable income. And again, budget month to month. Your budget is never the same each month. Okay? The last thing I really want to talk about with budgeting is special situations. What if you have a tendency towards depression that causes you to miss work and lose jobs potentially, or you have sicknesses that are going on that make it difficult to hold down a job? Maybe you have other frequent job loss for whatever reason. Maybe you haven't figured it out, or the industry you're in is a high turnover with jobs. First of all, we need to address some of that in the income, but also when you do have a variable job, especially if you have a tendency towards depression, anxiety, or sickness, you have got to treat it like you have a variable income and put lots away, enough away with that commitment to be self-reliant that you know you're going to lose a job every 2 to 3 months, or maybe it's 6 months. Then on the months when you have a job, you've got to build up enough of an emergency fund, like you have a variable income, so that you can cover those times when you lose a job. Because again, I've said this before, the church is not insurance against hard times. You need to make sure that you've saved enough so that when that job loss comes, you'll be able to take care of yourself. So those are my initial tips on budgeting. I hope you find them useful, and we'll talk next time about income and how to get your income up. So thanks. Talk to you later.